I literally just recorded this whole episode and then found out I hadn't turned my mic on because I went to let the cat out because he was gonna vomit. So I'm doing it all again with love, of course. So I want to talk to you about overcoming your past. And when I say overcoming your past, it's not just a vague thing, as in something that happened in your childhood, but more concrete, like something that happened yesterday, maybe something that happened um, last year or when you first started working, and maybe something that happened before that. So if you had a bad day yesterday and you maybe had a bad experience with a client, so a difficult client, that shouted at you, that said that vets are just in it for the money, the typical one where you just don't have any chemistry and it just goes haywire, then it is very likely that your brain is going to remember this because this was a very, very uncomfortable experience. And brain recognizes uncomfortable experiences just as if you had done something really dangerous and it wants you to avoid doing it again. So this makes sense going back to cave people times. If you found some nuts and you ate them and you felt really bad, vomiting, had bad stomach cramps, and you were about to die, your brain is going to let you know every time you see some nuts to be careful that you don't eat them again because it doesn't want you to die, which makes sense, right? Because brain is clever. So when you wake up next morning, when you've had a bad experience in the clinic and you feel dread and panic and, just all these uncomfortable feelings straight away, you sometimes feel them even before you remember why you feel them. So if you've had a really bad experience the day before, maybe at the end of your shift and you didn't have time to process it with anybody, and now today you're just gonna go into your day full of dread, going to work in your, in the morning while you're getting ready, when you're driving to work, you're just like replaying the scene over and over, and I shouldn't have said, and they could not have said, and why did I? It's likely that your brain is like sending you the toxic nuts signal because it knows you're going to go to work and it wants you to be prepared in case it happens again. It wants you to avoid this very uncomfortable situation. Because it makes sense that obviously our past experience is going to guide us towards the future. So, since we're babies, if you saw a stone and you fell over it, then you avoid the stone so you don't fall again. But often, like us being so attached to the past and remembering the bad things so much, it just ends up being stopper for us being able to live in our current reality. Because now we're ruminating, remembering, we're making it mean all these things. So if that was a nasty client, and then that brain will go like looking for all the other times that we have clients that weren't really nice. And then it's gonna look at the diary for today and what clients might come in that are nice. And it's just gonna like destroy your whole day because now you're like instead of being in your current neutral reality, you're living in this other past reality where clients were nasty and you felt really badly. And it's really important to try and separate them out. Another thing that, in a way that your past can come and haunt you and define your reality, is if you, for example, had a bad bleed doing a bit spay. Let's say it took you ages to find the ovaries and then you were pulling the ligaments out and it was just really hard because the incision wasn't big enough and you go in and you like rip or you cut and now there's blood everywhere and it was a terrible experience and you had someone to come in and help and open up and just really uncomfortable and you felt stupid and you felt like you weren't really good at what you were doing and you were scared. So it makes sense that brain is going to remember this experience. So constructively, you can then go in and say, okay, so what can I do so I can better find the ovaries, so I can better cut the ligament? It makes sense to make a bigger incision. It makes sense maybe to have a couple of hands in to help me open up, and someone to dab and maybe, in a constructive way. And that way your past would help with your current reality. But no, what brain does is bid spays are terrible. I'm really bad at them. They bleed a lot. They're really difficult. The ligament is too tight. And it's just going to put these thoughts into your head like these are the facts about bid space. And this could literally haunt you for the next 40 years. So even if you're much better at it, and even if in theory, the experience doesn't have to be that bad, your brain is just going to go in the same groove and you're still living in your past. You're living in this past kind of mental construct about how bitch space are, when in reality you're actually much better at it, but you're not living that reality because you were so uncomfortable when it happened And the brain and the body are so linked. So whenever you think spay, body is like panic, anxiety, I'm bad, I'm not good. They're difficult, right? And they're just stuck. And it's really important to recognize when this happens. And for example, for the morning when you wake up and you had a bad day the day before and you feel this like dread and anxiety straight away, I now have this awareness, which I've worked on for a long, long time. That's why I can do it now. I can go, right, I recognize what it is. Toxic, not signal, not useful. I don't need to think about this anymore. This is dealt with. But often if you do that, it's like the equivalent of trying to push a beach ball down and then it will pop up again and you'll just make you feel even more anxious. And then there's two ways you can deal with it. One is having a notebook on your bedside table or by your breakfast and just write down the stuff that happened and what you're making it mean and why you think, you're going to have a bad day today. And just show your brain that you are seeing the toxic nuts signal and you're aware of it and just kind of like but take a bit of a danger out of it by putting it down on paper and realize actually it's just something that happened yesterday. I don't need to be so scared now. Like it doesn't mean that all the other clients are going to be like that or that the uncomfortable feelings I had yesterday at work are going to repeat themselves. And another thing you can do if you're fairly self-aware already is, or you don't have time to journal, is go, I will deal with this later. So not as completely just not useful, don't need to deal with, but right brain, I see your toxic nuts. I get that. I can't just push it away because you're going to keep thinking I'm going to eat toxic nuts and die. I'm just going to deal with it later. So I'm going to speak to my manager at lunch, or I'm going to speak to my coach later this week, or I'm going to speak to my partner when I go home, and I'm going to deal with it then. So give your brain like a little plan that it knows that you're dealing with it and you're not going to eat the toxic nuts. We are dealing and we are aware of this situation. The other thing that can happen as well, where the past drags you down and you're not really aware of it, is if it's something much less specific. So let's say, I'm just checking that my mic is on. I don't want to be doing this a third time, as fun as it is. It can be something much more vague. It can be when you finished as a new vet grad, maybe you worked in an environment that wasn't that supportive or directly a toxic environment. And because you didn't have the confidence yet and you weren't that good yet, because like you're not that good when we come out, right? Like we need a lot of support and you didn't get it. Now your brain is in fight and flight and you are feeling defensive and you're feeling resentment, and those grooves are just going to work themselves more and more and more into your brain. Like those neural pathways are just going to keep firing together if you don't deal with it. So when you move on then to hopefully a nicer workplace, and maybe this was something that happened years ago, it's very easy to stay in those emotional grooves of resentment, anxiety, imposter syndrome, because you haven't dealt with it and you're still kind of living in this mental construct of the past and is really affecting your present reality. So VetMed is just always dangerous and not an ideal place and a non-supportive place for you because you cannot see the support you're having now because your brain is still so attached to the past and so scared of the quote unquote toxic nuts, which was that non-supportive workplace. So it can also be something like way past, like for example, the way we think about money can be coming from our childhood, like the way our parents spoke about money, the experience with the things we saw them arguing over money or whatever, and that can really affect the way we maybe react when our clients say we don't have money or how much it's going to cost. So there's a lot of stuff from the past that we're not even aware of that we're dragging into our current reality. And it's important that you're aware of it because always, every day when we wake up is a clean slate. Whatever happened in the past, everything, all of it is in the past. Even if something that happened produces a complaint now, it's only the complaint now you're dealing with. You're not dealing with the situation in the past. You only have to deal with whatever comes onto your plate today. And like I said before, we tend to live in these three timelines of the past, mulling over that, now what I'm dealing with at this moment and what everybody else are doing in their business, and then worrying about the future. And the more you can hone in on just living in the present and staying in your lane and not worry about what everybody else are doing or did or will do, the more you can relax and the less burned out you're going to get. So keeping dragging the past in and keep firing the same new pathways that are just kind of like grooves in your brain now from the past, the more you can be aware of that and address it and pull it apart so you can come back to your current reality, the less burned out you're going to be and the more you're going to enjoy your current reality. So waking up in the morning and feeling crap because of something that happened yesterday, that doesn't have to happen, right? You can deal with it by the ways I've taught you. And if it's something a bit more heavy in you, if it's something a bit more like it's in your bones, in your core now, like for example, a bit spay. So every time you have to go in and spay or do an operation, now instantly you get that anxiety, panic. I don't know, I'm not good enough. Oh my God. But theoretically, you need to know that you are better now. Like you've done three things that happened, and you are, by logic, getting better at it. You can also deal with this by changing the emotion. For this, you do need to have some self-awareness of emotion, which is why I've talked about before. On a daily basis, notice how you're feeling, where it is in your body, and that, because you can literally, let's say, I think about bit spay, I think about the situation, and it's like, you know, throat closes up, not in the chest, pounding heart, not in your stomach, and a bit shaky. Um, if you then park the memory and then go to something else, go to something nice, go to a sensation you had, something you're really good at, like placing catheters or doing whatever it is you're really good at, or bring up love, like love for your kids, love for your cat or your dog, like that groundedness you have when you walk your dog, or whatever it is that makes you feel really good, really grounded, confident. I know I can do this. Cooking, whatever. No, like find that feeling within you, like attach, anchor to it, and then you can think about spaying again, and then bring up the space situation, but kind of like just think about it a bit further away and have that feeling in your body and see how that can change the memory of the spay. Because if you're feeling grounded and you're feeling confident and you look at it, you can go, oh yeah, of course it didn't go that well. I wasn't that experienced yet. So yeah, that's normal, but actually I am better at it now. Like you can have more rational thoughts if you're not feeling panic. It's very difficult to rationalize yourself out of a state of fight and flight, which is why it's so important that we can feel our emotions and that we can actually have a bit more control over them. So those are the ways I would advise you to try and overcome your past. So when these thoughts are coming in, these intrusive thoughts are not helpful, that making you feel bad, like if you have a lot of self-awareness, if you know how you're feeling and all that, if you're at that level now, go, not useful now, brain. Thank you. I see it. Toxic nuts. It's fine. That's not it. If you're still a bit like, I don't really know what's going on, journal on it. Write down what you're feeling. Write down what happened. Write down what you should have said. Write down everything so you can get it out of your brain and show it. You're aware of the toxic nuts and you are dealing with it. Or if you don't have time for that, or just like makes you feel panic having to waste time, quote unquote, on writing down, say to your brain, I'm going to deal with it later. I'm going to speak to my manager. I'm going to pick up the phone and speak to the clients. I'm going to speak to my coach later. Oh, I'm gonna speak to my partner when I get home and then process it, right? Um, and just like recognizing it, like recognize it for what it is. It's just a toxic not signal from your brain and rationalize around it that way. Or the other way, like I said, bring up some really nice emotion, grounded, confident, love, whatever it is, emotions that make you feel really good, focused, confident, determined, those feelings in your body, and then bring up the memory of the thing that was freaking you out. And then you're seeing it in a new light and you're modifying that memory so it doesn't have to define your present reality so much. So every day is a clean slate. Every day you don't have to deal with anything that happened in the past. Whatever mistakes you made, whatever happened to you, has nothing to do with what's happening today. And be careful in not staying stuck in those old grooves where it's really difficult to create your lovely veterinary life and be creative and doing stuff and falling in love with work and having fun if you have all that weight on you from your past. Just use what's good for you, use it to create new experiences, use your experience to get better, to give yourself constructive feedback, but don't let it define you and don't let it like overwhelm your current reality. Don't let it dominate your present. You can't live new amazing experiences. It's just not worth it. We only have one life and you don't want to get stuck in whatever past you don't like from your past. Right. I hope this recorded. And again, if you need help with this, it can take just one session. Any experience you've had that really marked you and is triggering you a lot, it can take one coaching session to go in, find the thought, find the feeling you're having around it, analyzing, pull it apart, notice what it is, and just get it like to this like clean thing that doesn't have to define you anymore or determine your present or determine your future at all. Let's just get it down to one timeline. Let's get it clean. Let's get it, fully defined what's going on so you can have full control of it and not be defined by it. I invite you to come to a session, book your session anytime you want, message me if you can't find a time on my calendar that works for you. I will make time for you, I swear, because I want to help each and one of you to get to a point where whatever happens, at least you're dealing with something now that might be traumatic, but it doesn't have to define the rest of your life and Vedmed. All right, that was it for today. Take care. Bye. Get down.